I'm very, very curious just while we're waiting, if anybody wants to just share with the group how COVID and the recession has been impacting your sales activity. I'll be very interested to hear that. Does anybody want to share? Raise your hand. Not everybody at the same time, please.
I can share with you.
Yeah, thank you, Luis.
No, but let me just put the video.
Oh, sorry, José.
Yeah, I can share.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I can share with you. Hi, good morning to everyone. My name is José Miguel Weinberg. I'm the sales director of a energy renewable company, solar. We install PV systems in big companies for self-consumption, and I'm talking from we do installations all around Portugal. We belong to a NG group. We are a big company, and one of the things that we are witnessing is that most of the projects were postponed, not cancelled. I think this is a good indication, but at least they were postponed. But they were postponed for a non-identified period. So it could be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. Could be only to the end of the year they will take the decision or make the decision. But this is a little bit complicated for our sales activity, because this is something that is going to not allow us to put our budget and our pipeline as more active and realistic as possible. Just to give you this information, what we witness is a more postponing than canceling, which is good, but unfortunately it's not good for our business.
And because on top of that, you've got the cumulative effect of the oil prices as well, right? Is that impacting as well?
In a way, yes, but nevertheless, this is something that most of the companies, we in Portugal, we have a lot of sun, so most of the companies look at this as a great opportunity to use energy production that is available and it's free. So this is something that it could complement with the reduction of the energy costs related with the consumption, but be more efficient, sustainable, and this is something that it could be complemented to all the other issues. But nevertheless, the justification is more, they are looking into their own business at this time, trying to identify how they're going to continue working, how they are going to reestablish all the work they already had in the beginning of the year, and what's going to be the rest of the year, but for their own business. So this is something that it's more or less parallel to their own activity. So,
God,
but it shouldn't.
Yeah, it would be lovely if this was a great opportunity to capitalize on renewable energy and start to move more to renewable energy, you know, rather than the powers that be in the coal and oil industry. But that was very interesting, José. Thank you for sharing. I think Luis as well wanted to share. Is that true?
Yes, I want. Good morning, Helga. Good morning, everyone. Chris.
Good morning.
Right now, I'm not dedicated to business. Okay, I'm here to learn because I'm dedicated to B2G, which is I'm selling just to governments. Okay, and my company is growing because a lot of opportunities due to COVID-19 are rising up at this stage. Because as you can imagine, governments have their own budget, a state budget already full dedicated, and now they need to allocate the budget to else in order to be able to buy the real stuff to give fast answer to COVID-19. And we are dealing with them because we are allowing them to show the transparency of those negotiations to the public, so everyone can see what the governments are doing and how the money is being spent and how the money is being dedicated to other areas and taken from some parts, but invested in other areas. So, and as we work around the world, you can imagine that we don't stop at this stage. It's different. It's a different concept of working, but it's really, really, really different. It's the kind of, I ask for giving for this, it's the COVID-19 for us, it's a huge opportunity of development. Okay?
It's quite, you know, it's quite incredible to understand how COVID and the recession, it's actually a sort of two edges, isn't it? I mean, some companies are really thriving and others are, it's just incredibly negative. So, but a lot of companies are finding ways of capitalizing through these negative circumstances. It's definitely a moment of opportunity for some industries and sectors. I just want to say again a big hello to everybody, and thank you so much for your interest in this topic and for joining us in this webinar, New Normal in Sales. I'm thrilled to be here with you and to be invited by the BPCC, who's a tremendous accelerator, certainly in helping me advance numerous projects I've been involved in. They're a great connector, they're full of can-do energy and always ready to offer great ideas. Okay, so let's get back to what brought us together here. We're all today engaged in a battle that's being fought on three fronts. So we've got the health pandemic, we've got the economic crisis, and of course the oil price war, all of which have blindsided businesses, you know, shaking them to the core. But, oh, actually, I do beg your pardon. I do have a presentation that I want to bring up. I do apologize. So I'm kind of a little bit blinded at the moment. So is that okay? I'm going to share the presentation. Is that okay, Helena?
Yep, okay with me.
Please do. Okay, share.
And I shall mute myself from now on, unless you ask me a specific.
And right, and just put it on presentation mode. Now, can everybody see this?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So actually, just before, sorry, I'm kind of doing things a little bit upside down. I got a little bit distracted with our conversation on the challenges. I wanted to also, with the permission of the BPCC, first of all, let you know, you guys are all here, you're all interested in sales. And the biggest, most unique event on sales in Portugal is going ahead. This time virtually. It's salesshaker.com, so you'll find all the information on SalesShaker. Please come and attend. We are bringing together an incredible group of people. We've got over 15 speakers. They're all incredible. They're all incredible. They're all incredibly successful in their field. We're bringing different perspectives of sales and business development together. And you can check out the details on salesshaker.com, okay? It's a website that we are still transitioning to virtual, so please be patient with us. But you can already see all of the speakers there and the themes. You know, we're going from rethinking the sales to artificial intelligence and robotics. So very, very cool topic this year. Please sign up. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so looking at the impact of COVID and what has brought us here, how it's blindsided businesses, how it's shaking everything to its core. First of all, I just want to do, Elena, is that okay? I want to do a quick poll because I want to see who's in the room with us, please. Yeah. So if you bring up poll number 1, okay, it'll take you 3 seconds to fill it up. And we just want to know, what is your role? Are you a sales leader, sales professional, consultant, marketing professional. And if you are none of the above, please, please, please write on the chat.
Chris, poll 1.
Oh, Chris, sorry. It was Elena. You are on mute, Chris.
Yep, quite a few people have already voted. 22 people have voted already.
Brilliant. Oh, I couldn't see that, so I do apologize. Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. So also, Chris, could you pull up poll number 2? Because I want to know what industry you are involved in.
Can we have 2 polls running concurrently? I'm new to the polls, but...
Just bring up poll number 2. So let us know, guys, what industry you are connected in, okay? And this is an answer. Please write your answers on the chat area, okay? I'll carry on chatting, but please write your answers on the chat area. Let us get to know each other.
Helga, I think I need to close poll 1 to open poll 2.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm ending poll 1. We have 23 out of 30 votes. 24. I'll give it 10 more seconds.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
24.
So the impact of COVID and the oil price war and certainly the ensuing crisis has been tremendous for B2B selling organizations. It's something extraordinary, always happens at the start of any recession. I don't know if you guys have noticed. But companies take their forecasts, they take their models and their plans and, well, they throw them in the bin. Bear markets prove to be breeding grounds, excellent breeding grounds for innovation. And there's a Stanford economist, a gentleman called Paul Romer, that once famously said that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And this is because it can actually give you a fresh opportunity to do things you couldn't do before, or you didn't consider before. So at the beginning of a rebound, so we're seeing the beginning of a rebound of sorts. You know, demand is starting to pick up again. And we're starting to certainly see this in China. But given the different speeds and complexities of company sales engines and supply chains, the time to start planning for recovery has begun. You know, it's something that companies should have started already. So it's very important to retool and adapt the components that are part of the sales and the supply chain engine. Okay, there's a study by S&P and Capital IQ and BCG that's very interesting. It shows that in the last 4 downturns, an average of 14% of companies actually increased both their sales growth and their earnings, their earnings before interest margin, even despite unfavorable circumstances, right? So there are common traits demonstrated by these companies that grew the most. Things like, you know, they were able to prepare, they were able to anticipate, they empowered their workforce, they're aligned to their intention to grow and not retract their operations. And of course, they kept an eye on long-term transformation. This means that they bet on investment and training for the long haul, while the majority of their competitors were retracting and being more conservative. So, you know, I see a crisis a little bit like a receding tide that reveals the underlying rocks that were up until then hiding under the surface. And these rocks, guys, are new opportunities. So for companies in general, the first causality, you know, that link between cause and effect is reimagination, right? The ones that benefit the most are the ones who can shape their future, refocus their new operational business models and their portfolios of new products and services. So we are already seeing transitions in consumer behavior, right? That's impacting consumption patterns in certain industry sectors. So we see that in technology, well, the technology companies certainly that empower remote work. We see this in telemedicine, for example. Of course, the opposite side of the story is the impact in industries like tourism and travel, oil and airlines were being, of course, hit the hardest. But for companies connected to software, to health equipment, to 3D printing, oil storage, of course, this is a different story, right? So for some organizations, they will restart their operations without looking back, while others will re-examine carefully, learned lessons and consider them as new opportunities to improve their organizational effectiveness. So they will look at new ways of improving their predictions, their IT infrastructure, their agility, their resilience, through better market intelligence, valuation of risk, scenario planning, and literally reorganizing their people and resources, amongst other things. So let's take a step back, let's put fresh goggles on the market, and let's consider adapting to new approaches that may have not been considered before. And of course, bearing in mind that today's biggest trend is still one of unpredictability and uncertainty. Leaders are finding it very difficult to forecast, sometimes more than a few days ahead. So, we are still living in a world of VUCA, with an H at the end, of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, but in a hyper-connected world. So, generally, companies are spending less time and money in expanding their businesses, while investing more in the customer experience through the digital channel. They're trying to demonstrate a lot of empathy with their audience and clients, which is, of course, a difficult time for them. So, for sales leaders, once they stabilize the immediate situation, they really need to figure out how it is that they're going to sustain momentum despite social distancing and start to invest for the rebound. And I'm going to leave you guys with some ideas that are being implemented across the world, right? Also, sales leaders, you need to engage fast, you need to engage often with marketing, with service, with IT, with pricing, while they're adjusting their teams, their processes, and their pipelines. Now, for sales reps, this is a bit of a different story because sales reps are working through a lot of thoughts and a lot of emotions right now. Many professionals are just not comfortable with remote selling or virtual selling. Most are still adapting to value selling. So a lot of people are still pitching their product. And of course, doing very poorly in handling the natural resistance and objections that type of approach incites. Worse still is that they don't quite understand why this happens. So it's imperative that sales professionals today stop initiating conversations based on their product and instead position themselves as valuable resources with ideas to offer and that help to make the life of their client better in some way, okay? We talked about as well, I think it was with Jose, we were talking about, for many salespeople, their pipeline has simply disappeared pretty much overnight. Or they're facing cancellations from clients who are really struggling or going bankrupt. It's imperative to lead conversations with empathy, with self-awareness, and plan ahead, right? This is the time to develop that emotional intelligence and the ability to control your emotions. But what actually happens is that on one extreme, you have salespeople that can sound a little bit desperate, and desperation starts to creep in, and you can always tell when somebody sounds a little bit desperate on the phone, right? Or on the other extreme, you have salespeople who are just very understanding and really not fighting enough for the business and just accepting that, that cancellation is just fate, it's just because of the recession. And they don't question enough, they don't fight enough. And ultimately, it's the company that suffers now and, of course, in the future. So a spray and pray approach, as I call it, is never a good strategy, guys. Throwing spaghetti to the wall and seeing what sticks is never a good strategy. The best salespeople right now are personalizing their approach to emails. And guess what? Never a popular advice, but they are embracing the phone, right? I'm talking with a lady who is trying to develop business through partnerships. So this is not even a cold call. This is not even a cold contact. She's contacting this company through their partner, right? But she's still choosing to do that via email and waiting for them to respond. And I'm saying, pick up the phone, right? It's the most effective method of initiating a conversation, of advancing an opportunity towards close. Other areas that are severely, of course, impacting our results right now is confinement and mobility. I think the only point really I want to make about this is that, you know, one thing is working from home, right? What we've been seeing across the world is not working from home, right? It's people in confinement, people in crisis, confined, selling to people in crisis, also confined, okay? So this is a little bit different. Of course, consumption and demand and a low risk appetite. You know, we heard our colleague there say better than myself, you know, companies are canceling their projects, they're putting their orders on hold. Doing nothing right now seems to actually represent a lower risk than buying from you, right? So this is all happening. Another interesting characteristic of today's world that we're living, the new normal, is of course accelerated digitalization. There's been increased shifts across most sectors that are transitioning to the digital channel and adopting new technology. And sales are having to be done virtually. So training resources are needed. And do bear in mind, and this is just my personal opinion, most of these changes are here to stay. Sales leaders, of course, are using this time to create digital playbooks, digital sales playbooks. This is important. This is really good advice because these playbooks, they offer guidance on how to interact with the client virtually, right? This playbook describes things like best practices about remote work, not just in terms of technology, but what processes should be used to actually manage customers' expectations. The CEO of HSBC had an internal meeting with all of its people. And this is a guy who apparently does not work from home. He's never worked from home, doesn't really do it. And he's turned around to his staff worldwide and he's basically said, it's incredible, it's mind-blowing how we are running a global bank with people working from home. And he even mentioned how, you know, he's questioning how valuable is the investment that he makes on that huge, great big building in Canary Wharf, which is their headquarters. Well, anyway, just an FYI there. Last but not least, there's been a huge shift in messaging. Guys, you know, one of the biggest hit sectors has been marketing because pretty much overnight, nearly all of the content that's written has just become irrelevant or tone deaf. So brands are adjusting their messaging to ensure that they're being thoughtful and not coming across as irrelevant. So in particular, brands are focused on their digital resources, in social media tactics, in virtual events, client retention, digital strategies. But of course, they're having to readjust their messages so that they're well received and they demonstrate empathy by their audience. So this refocus, retool, reimagine, rebound really summarizes this introduction. So let's dive right in and see the 5 areas that sales leaders, B2B organizations are focusing on and reviewing to adapt their sales engines and prepare for acceleration. Okay, these areas will have both short, medium, and long-term impacts. Okay, Chris, can I just do a quick stop here and invite people to participate, because this is I want this to be a highly engaging webinar. Can we give them poll number 3, please?
I'll try that.
Okay, we want to know, colleagues and friends, we want to know, what are your biggest sales challenges? Is that it? Is that the one? Yes. Just tell us your, okay. Respond on the chat, please. Okay, and it's starting to come through. So tell us your biggest challenges in sales right now, whatever they may be. Okay, we want to know. Thank you for that. So as we let you answer, we'll carry on. Okay, there's no time to waste, but we'll let you answer that question. Okay, so the first one is, of course, nurture your clients and protecting your existing revenue. Now, relationships, of course, are built in times of crisis, and this really requires 2 things: for you to nurture your clients and maintain your pipeline. My God, dare I say, yes, push sales, but we'll look at that next. Okay. Now, I know that this may sound simple and obvious, this nurturing your clients, and I'm sure this is what you're doing already, okay? But let me ask you one thing. How many of you, right, have picked up your account plans and adjusted them to offer direction, to offer strategic actions, even response scripts that are adapted to the current situation, that encourage discipline, that provide consistency across your team? When was the last time that you even picked up your account plan and you looked at it? Okay, remember the goal here. You need to engage with your customers as early as possible and as effectively as possible. Okay, most salespeople, I'm sorry, somebody's got to say it, okay? This is the truth, this is a fact. Most salespeople, if you were to ask and they were to answer candidly, they wouldn't be able to tell you, for most of their accounts, who are their main stakeholders, how decisions are made, what are their budgets, how competitors are entrenched, how do they compare to your solutions, and to properly identify the size of the potential in the account. Most salespeople do not have this discipline. And losing customers in a crisis is bad. It's very bad, because in the short term, you need these customers to make your payroll, right, to cover your expenses, right? Even if they're spending less than what they did before. And in the long term, it's very expensive and time consuming to win these customers back. And it can be almost impossible, because these customers are now in other relationships with other contracts established, of which they cannot get out of, right? So what do we do? One great piece of advice is start by ranking, segmenting, reevaluating, and then prioritizing your customers. Base it on factors like the value that that customer has, the contribution to profit, their strategic importance, their business potential, their tenure, right, and so on, okay? Adapt to their changing needs, which in this kind of landscape can actually, crazy enough, be daily, right? Use your team to do customer scenario planning, right? Get your own clients to collaborate. Get your own internal executives to help you to communicate in your account, okay? Shift your messaging, so you're not coming across as tone deaf. Remember one thing, customers aren't loyal to a product. They're loyal to what's behind the product. And so if consumption has changed, maybe not demand, but consumption, and if the customer doesn't truly understand or justify the value that you provide anymore, this customer is going to become somebody else's prospect, especially in a crisis, right? When your competitors are tempting them with promotions and cheaper deals. So prepare for your, say, 3 to 5 initial conversations with your existing customers. Develop some kind of a crisis talk track, which includes responses to questions that customers are likely to make, especially about discounts, you know, and asking you for discounts. And don't forget that marketing is a great collaborator, companion, partner to help you to provide great insights for this. Adapt your digital marketing model. Here, you need to try and create powerful experiences for your customers through the digital channel. We've been talking about this for so long, right? Eliminate these silos between marketing, between sales, between service. It's at these times that it counts the most, right? One way of doing this is to adapt the principles of account-based management. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with account-based management. Many of you may have heard of account-based marketing, but I do advise you to look into this. But this is basically, you know, for the more strategic clients, the goal here is to encourage consensus between various stakeholders or decision makers, you know, across the client organization. So sales and marketing really do have to work together here. So you're producing content that positions yourself as a trusted partner that offers valuable, relevant information to their businesses, right? And these messages are personalized to each individual. You know, they're receiving a value proposition from their perspective. So then imagine the cumulative effect of this, because all of the stakeholders in that account are receiving value propositions, but from their own perspective. So when it comes to actually making a decision, guess what? Your product, your service assumes the leading pole position, right? Because of all this work that's been done. Assume that every customer is at risk. You know, be proactive with your accounts, be responsive. I mean, this is things that, you know, where I come from, I spent 25 years in London developing 17 of those developing businesses for, you know, multinationals. Honestly, I'm incredulous. I'm speechless when I hear people, and I know this is true, right? Salespeople can take 2-3 days a week, you know, without telling anything to their prospect, without giving them an answer. I mean, you know, where I come from, a prospect taking the first move, making the first move and asking you about your business is gold. It's diamond. There is no excuse not to be responsive. There's no excuse. And then lastly, prepare to handle objections, okay? We'll look at this a little bit later because objections have changed. You know, you are listening to a lot more, oh, you know, we need to wait until the dust settles, you know, the budget isn't clear right now, or I'm too busy, or we're all working from home, or we're not meeting vendors at this time. So you need to prepare for these objections, you know, and in the work that I do with clients, you know, I prepare them to handle objections, to update their value propositions. This is all done, you know, with very strong methodologies that really turn salespeople and sales leaders very flexible and independent to handle different situations. So moving on to number 2, I don't want this to be so much charged with information. So if anybody has questions and they want me to stop, take a moment. Chris, I'm relying on you. Helena, I'm relying on you to just, you know, put the reins in on me and take a moment to pause. Otherwise, I'll carry on. This number 2 is a bit, it's a little bit controversial, shall I say, which is about securing pipeline and pivoting sales. Maintaining a strong pipeline, uncovering more opportunities, accelerating lead generation. My God, going from defense to offense. Now, okay, you might think I'm a little bit crazy because you might say, Helga, this is just not the time to do it. However, when I talk about prospecting and a time like this, of course, I'm talking about doing it with nuances. But colleagues, friends, you need to continue to prospect. If you're leaving it to recover, to wait until the recovery to start prospecting, it's going to be too late. Your short-term pipeline may be gone, but now is the time to start nurturing and identifying existing opportunities. Because guess what? Clients are suffering, right? People are suffering. There are businesses suffering. So you need to ask yourself, who is it that I help that really, really, really needs my help? And in a way that only I can do it, in a differentiated way. So review your prospecting plan. Do you even have a prospecting plan? Okay. Adjust your go-to-market channels, target prospects, your message, update your objections, even your offerings. Okay. So of course there are nuances that need to be taken into account. So rethink your targets. You know, one way of doing this is separating each industry, okay, and outline the impact of the crisis and the new challenges that that industry may be facing, okay? And then look at the solutions that this industry might potentially be looking for. And really here there's 5 variables that you can consider when re-evaluating your ideal customer accounts, right? You can look at geography, for example. You know, you can look at data sources like Direção Geral de Saúde or the CDC of the United States, or, you know, the World Health Organization. But the intent here is to determine the severity of the impact by geography. And then you can decide to prospect in the areas, to stop prospecting in the areas that are hardest hit by COVID. Another variable that you might be looking at might be company size, for example. You know, you might want to analyze major segments by, you know, medium business, mid-market, enterprise, and so on, evaluate impact there. And you might decide, you know, I'm going to deprioritize very small business accounts right now, for example. A third element might be the vertical industry, for example. You can deprioritize certain industries that may have effectively shut down because of the pandemic, or those who are having a slow recovery. But there's others that are showing business strength, right? So you can prioritize those. And then finally, you can look at areas like, you know, financial strength. So you might look at certain companies or industries or verticals with, for example, great credit ratings, right? Credit ratings is a good qualifying factor to evaluate the financial strength of a company. And then finally, you can decide, okay, maybe I want to reallocate my resources on net new clients versus existing clients. You know, for example, you might want to increase your spend on customer expansion, for example, right, on net new clients, and put more efforts there. So these are just some of the ideas. The next point is, I love this formula. right? I love this formula, which is, it's very old, and it's still very powerful. It's still very effective. And it's this, it's the number of leads versus the win rate versus the average order size divided by the length of the sales cycle, right? I would urge you to look at this formula, right? Let it be your compass for your activity. For those who are in the B2C world, I suppose this would translate a little bit like, you know, the traffic into your store versus the conversion rate into a sale versus the average basket size. You know, the logic is pretty similar. It's pretty the same. So looking at each one of these points here. So when you're looking at the number of leads, how can you increase the number of leads? Again, align sales and marketing. You know, there's a saying that I love, which is, marketeers, they load the pistol and salespeople fire the bullets. Marketing generates leads for sales. They promote digital campaigns that should be targeted, of course, and well aligned to today's environment. They adjust their scripts, their frequently asked questions, and they pass on these lists to salespeople. Salespeople, of course, on the other hand, get proactive, you know, be personalized in your approach. And there's a word that I love, which is intentional. Be intentional in your contact. Okay, this is something that's missing a lot with salespeople. They just call for the sake of, you know, I want to talk to you about my product. That's not the way to approach an effective sales conversation in today's world. You need to be intentional in everything you do. And of course, complement all of this activity, which is being generated by marketing, with your own proactiveness, okay? With your own proactiveness. This equilibrium between marketing and sales, this is what creates a balanced, interconnected, effective, inbound and outbound, robust and aggressive lead generation engine, okay? So you can commit to go after upselling and cross-selling opportunities to clients that are a little bit more resilient. Sorry, I'm going here a little bit fast. And get together internally to debate adequate solutions for these accounts. I remember I worked for a company called Navex Global. They're the biggest compliance company in the world. And we had a forum where everybody who was anybody, all the executives, including the CEO, would be part of this forum. And we would brainstorm ideas to help us advance major deals, okay? And this takes me to the point of the win rate and the conversion rate. What can you do to accelerate this? You know, of course, here is about being diligent with your coaching, right? Which is about, you know, like I said, creating these virtual win rooms, you know, where you brainstorm ideas on how to advance these major opportunities and overcome these obstacles, okay? So this attitude of being able to get into this into this form of discussion internally really is transformational. Things like order size, you're looking here at upselling and cross-selling. The advice I give you here is the following. Look at customers, look at your best customers and identify the way that they behave, right? And then look at the ones that are behaving very similarly, but who still have potential to do more, okay? Based on the evidence of the first group of customers that use your portfolio more efficiently. These guys that are not using all of the products that they could, those are your targets, okay? And then create this kind of task force to get it done. So the last one, which is the duration of the life cycle, this really has to improve the cycle of the sale. You really have to be able to, focus on last stage deals, really focus on making sure that you've answered any objections, be efficient on sending proposals. There's a formula, I can't remember the study now, but there's a study that shows that if you increase each one of these components by a mere 5%, that the overall impact on results is it's nearly 22%, right? So the answer now, of course, is to focus on fundamentals, okay? People, I can't stress this enough, especially to sales leaders, because sometimes sales professionals just won't admit to this, right? But I have a course that I teach at Nova School of Business and Economics up in the Carcavelos campus, and I see this all the time, okay? Sales professionals are failing at the fundamentals. The new ones, right, whoever is new to sales, never really gets the chance to learn. And people who have been in sales for decades really have not innovated, right? In the majority of the cases, of course, I'm talking. I see this every day. Learning and practicing how to connect, how to speak with decision makers, okay, is imperative. You need to understand what is the value that I represent to someone? What is the value that I give to someone, right? That someone gets for spending time with me? How am I being intentional in my contact? Do I know really why I'm calling? And please, you're calling, you're contacting somebody not to sell your product, not even to talk about your product. You want to qualify, you want to do efficient discovery. Discovery, my friends, is the secret behind success in sales, right? Know how to overcome objections, the new ones. Learn how to do active listening, okay? Typically, and I'm not lying, salespeople are dying to talk. They're dying to get to the part where they can talk. They can get to talk about their product and demo their product. Okay, this couldn't be more wrong. And of course, so leveraging discovery. Do not pitch. Do not pitch. Okay, this is the worst thing that you can do, even at the better of times, right? Failure to respect the fundamentals is only magnified during a crisis. Okay, I'm going to move on from this point. But during the good times, not knowing the basis is not so bad because it's kind of masked by a boomed economy. You can't hide in a crisis situation. So learn the fundamentals, okay? Leverage discovery. I'm not going to go into more than this, but identifying what it is that makes your customer tick, okay? What is important to your customer? Let me tell you a piece of news, right? Your customer, your prospect is not interested in you, is not interested in your product, and it's not interested in your company. Your prospect, your customer is only interested in what you can do for them. Not doing discovery, not doing effective qualifying, asking the right questions is the biggest reason why opportunities stall in the pipeline and why deals don't close. And this happens because you're not influencing your client enough with those smart questions that challenge the customer, that challenge them to think about their current situation and how they can improve it, And how can they then become self-aware of why it is that they can change and take action? So discovery is that language of asking the right questions, okay? And of course, handling objections. Now, just for the sake of time, I want to move across to the third point here. Chris, I just wanted to get people working again. I don't want anybody falling asleep. I hope everybody's finding this engaging and useful. I need to know, guys, please help me. What skills do you think are important to be developed for you or your team to develop to see you through the crisis? Okay, can we pull that? Yay, that's it. That's the one. Thank you so much, Chris. Please answer it in the chat box. Okay, and thank you. Thank you for that. So, safeguard your margins, defending your prices. I love this one. Because what's the first thing when people start panicking and the markets start going down? Is they start to offer discounts. Let's discount everything. Let's give discounts, okay? Chris, do you remember that case study from the Porsche versus General Motors?
No.
No? When there was the recession, the big recession, General Motors started discounting the prices of their cars, right, left, and center. They just felt like, oh, let's sell at the cheapest possible price. Whereas Porsche actually limited production of their cars. They produced less cars, kept their prices up, right? And well, story speaks for itself. Who was the winner of that battle? You know, because where is GM now? And where is Porsche now? So there are some interesting case studies here. There was one that I picked up from Volvo. They're not selling a lot of cars right now, of course. But what they've done is they've changed their pricing model to charge by the kilometer. So consumption has remained the same, but people are not buying the car itself. There is another company called SKF, and they do rolling spheres for industry. And what they've done is they decided to charge for the productivity of the machine instead of the equipment itself. So instead of selling the equipment, they're charging for the productivity of the equipment. Okay, so I just love how in times like this, these subscription models seem to work really, really well. Really, really, really well. So there's just a bit of an idea there for you. My advice, absolutely don't just start running off and discounting your prices by sheer default. You know, when you start cutting your prices, you know, your competitors start cutting your prices, and then it's sparking a price war. So some ideas here for you. Offer price alternatives, cheaper price options, you know, debundle your products, take out certain services, you know, remove those nice to haves and offer good enough solutions. Make new solutions that fit into new market segments. Okay. Offer some type of an entry price, some type of an entry offering with the ability to kind of land and expand when times are better. But more importantly, define a discount policy, right? And then monitor it. Structure some kind of a concessions matrix and then define how each client profile will be allocated into it, okay? Define it very well so that you know where each customer fits. And then depending, you know, you can define it by, you know, their contribution to profit, you know, length of contract, whatever it is. But this will allow you to deliver consistency across all your accounts. So for example, if you're conceding, you know, better payment terms, ask for preferred vendor status, you know, be creative, right? And position everyone very clearly in this matrix. And then another idea might be to reinforce your activity in your high differentiation segment, okay, where you justify your margins. And then lastly, my God, of course, you know, keep a morality check, okay, because your credibility is the silent ambassador of your brands. Somebody said that. Can't remember who. So these, I kind of wanted to move on now to make sure that we fit the last 2 points here, which is about reviewing your sales model and adjusting your resources. This has got more midterm implications. Just to be sure here, colleagues, your sales model describes how you sell, okay? So, you know, your sales process, you know, lays out the specific steps that an organization, your client takes, you know, to turn a lead into a sale. But the sales module, the sales module really answers the questions, you know, where do most of your leads come from? Okay, ask yourself that. Are they inbound or are they outbound? You know, how much of your revenue comes from existing customers? Do I want to focus on retention or do I want to focus on acquisition? How many people are involved in each sale? Right? Is it, do we execute team sales or do we get, you know, executive involvement? Do you pitch one person in your target account or do you pitch to multiple people? So are you following an account-based management model or more of a relational model? Okay, because now is the time to really focus on how you approach this, because this will get you ready for the next disruption, okay? Because it will happen, right? Disruptions are cyclical, they will happen. So become efficient at virtual and remote selling, all right? Develop these virtual win rooms where you can have team members, executives, strategize on your outstanding deals, right? Adjust your offering and your messaging, maybe even your target markets. Adapt your sales focus on your products and services less effective to more resilient prospects and customers. Align your current product and portfolio to new markets. You know, shift your sales resources. Maybe you're finding now that there are channels where you will find more demand. You know, adapt your sales resources to that. But more importantly, you know, look at your process as well. I know a lot of people who set their sales process and then never look at it again. You know, maybe a year after they'll see, oh, how are we doing? How are we doing? So review this process, how your leads go through the pipeline and get through the pipeline. Where are your bottlenecks? Where do opportunities stall? Look at that formula that we looked at before. What are the reasons behind it? Some of them might be out of your control, but you need to know what it is that's causing bottlenecks and not allowing your opportunities to move forward. Okay? One of the reasons, just an FYI for you out there, one of the reasons, one of the most common reasons why opportunities don't close, my friends, is because people fail at getting commitments. There is this idea that in a sale, you close at the end. Okay, this is not true. You are consistently, continuously gaining commitments throughout the process. The secret, right, and this is something that I do during my training, is to help people identify the various stages that you have to get commitment from your prospect in order to effectively close your deal. So you're asking for commitments for things like time, for their time, to collaborate, to share information, to get consensus, to do discovery, for investment, right? There is a time and a place when these happen, and there is a certain consistency, and it should be within your control, the control of the salesperson, aligned, of course, to the journey of the client, right? But it's imperative that you understand when these commitments should occur and that you learn to know how to ask them. Okay? Very, very, very important. Lastly, the anticipating for the rebound. So this is, of course, looking at the long term and preparing for recovery. And really, what I wanted to say here is, of course, you know, what goes down must come up at some point. So you want to target on your growth areas. You want to test new ways of working. You know, like we said, a crisis is a perfect ground for innovation, and innovation always comes out at times like this. So if inside sales, if virtual sales have been working better now than field sales, then reinforce that channel, because a lot of these processes will be here to stay. Inside sales, I don't know if you guys have really been hearing about this trend, but for the last decade, these guys have been, you know, this has been a growing trend where, you know, inside sales is the team that are selling products and services through the phone, email, or internet. And right now, my God, they're front and center, you know, during the crisis. But, you know, if in your organization it proves that these guys are more effective, then you might need to look at the ratio between your field sales and your inside sales. Okay, where are you getting more consistency, efficiency? Also, identify structural industry shifts, right? What's happening now in terms of M&A activity? You know, are your competitors struggling right now? And can you reinforce your position in that part of the market? So you want to monitor these opportunities closely as you move out of the crisis. The other advice is, of course, creating this sales SWAT team. And this could be cross-functional. So you might have a team that includes, you know, HR, operations, finance, sales, IT, marketing. Or it could be formed by purpose. So what's your purpose? Is it to increase upselling or cross-selling or remote selling or protect your pricing? And who do you get? Who do you involve to help you to achieve those goals? And then finally, and I'm sorry, I now see that it's 11:30, and I want to beg your pardon for extending myself a little bit more, but analyze emergent scenarios, because you know, there really isn't one number that can capture or predict the economic impact of COVID. So this is a good time to ensure your data quality, okay? Your CRM needs to be in tip-top shape, because it is this intel that's gonna allow you to make decisions on where to go next. You know, remember the saying when it comes to the CRM, you know, when you throw peanuts, you get monkeys, right? That's the CRM, okay? So this is, oh my God, I've extended myself by 1 minute. I just wanted to say, of course, keep sales teams motivated. There's all sorts of things that you can do there as well. Upgrade your sales experience and your customer journey. I think before we go to questions, I just wanted to say that good times build confidence, right? Bad times, they build character. So I think we're all we're all building a hell of a lot of character right now. And hopefully, you know, most of us will come out of this looking back and with lessons learned and doing better and being more innovative with our sales prospecting and with our customer retention. So thank you very much for your patience, for your interest. I would love to take some questions now, if it's okay. Do we still have people here, Chris?
Yes, yeah. Pretty much 100% retention rate, so well done for that. So.
Hey, thank you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So who'd like to kickstart the questions? Nobody is putting their hands up or waving. So can I do a little, can I ask a question, Helga?
Oh my God. Of course you can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, it's a little bit of a...
I'm going to stop sharing this screen if that's okay, yeah?
Sure, sure. So this is a little bit of a sales prospecting on my part. So you've been a member of the BPCC for a number of years. What do you get out of it? What if you had to share that with other people? There are some people in the audience that are not members yet. What have you got out of it so far?
So this is a very interesting point here because organizations like the BPCC, and I have to single out the BPCC because some of organizations are more proactive than others. And I'll actually give an example. I started working with Nova, and I started building a course, a sales prospecting course at Nova. And I had this vision because my personal goal, and with Lead Results, I really want to contribute to innovating the sales, the B2B sales sector. And as soon as I had this idea for the sales shaker, because I wanted to create an event that was truly inspiring, that showed people what sophisticated selling, B2B selling looks like, and bring together successful international and national speakers that would share, you know, what's working well with them. And guess what? The first people I went to were Chris and Elena. I don't know if you guys remember.
Sure.
But the first people back in November 2018, you were the first people I came to because, you know, I had this vision. It was very scary. It was very ambitious. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted to do. But of course, you know, I spent 25 years in London. You know, I didn't know anybody in Portugal. So you guys really helped me to feel confident in giving that first step. And not only that, but actually give me contacts for people that then became speakers at the conference. So it was an incredible jumpstart for this particular project. Also for Lead Results, I mean, with Lead Results, what I'm doing is I'm working with companies, with sales professionals, with sales leaders in developing their skills for prospecting. Okay, so I'll work with a particular sales leader or a sales team, and we work on, you know, the value proposition, qualifying, dealing with objections, discovery, etc., etc. And the first thing I did when I founded Lead Results, the first thing I did was to connect with the BPCC because I wanted to connect with a community. And what I wanted to know, more importantly, is I wanted to know what is important for selling organizations, right? Because I didn't want to base my business on what was important to me. I very much followed the rule that, what's his name? The CEO of Adidas, he said, if you listen to your customer carefully enough, they will tell you what your business is. And this is exactly what I did through the BPCC. I wanted to, you know, put a finger in the pulse and understand what is important for sales professionals, for salespeople. And this is still prevalent today. You know, this is why I'm asking the questions and doing the polls that I'm doing, because what you feel is important is where I thrive, is what leads my business, is what drives me, it's the direction that I follow. Because what I want is not important. What you want, what sales leaders and sales professionals want, is what's important. And so the BPCC was, you know, fundamental in helping me to connect to the audience, to an audience, to a market, to help me feel that pulse, but also to jumpstart what actually has become, you know, an incredible event, which is the Sales Shaker. And by the way, the BPCC, again this year, is supporting the Sales Shaker. So, you know, we have companies like Nova, the BPCC, you know, Nestle, you know, we have incredible, and we have speakers. My God, go online and check the speakers that we have. It's incredible, incredible, really top people. Crazy inspirational. Salesshaker.com, by the way.
Thank you for that, Helga. And we've had a few brainstorming sessions over the times as well, haven't we? Kind of destroying some ideas and suggesting new ideas, and yeah. So, Chris,
it's worked well. I do beg your pardon. Somebody here has asked to recommend a CRM tool. Okay, so I don't work for any specific company, so I'm not promoting anyone. But throughout the years, I've used Salesforce, all right, throughout the years. For my business, and I don't mind sharing this, for my business, I have a small business. For my business today, I use HubSpot because it's just so quick, it's easy, it's free. The free version of it is good enough, honestly, it really is. And yeah, it does the business. It does the business. I see another question here on questioning. There is a methodology actually that I teach for discovery and questioning. It might not be the best time to explain it today. Maybe we do another session on discovery and questioning. It is the secret to engaging with the prospect and to attract their attention and to have them want to spend time with you. Okay, this is the secret. And with questioning, you're very much starting at the end and then working your way back to the beginning. So when you are thinking about what questions to ask, you want to be thinking in the sense of, for example, what is it that I do that only I do very, very well and that differentiates me, right? And then you start there, you know, with the answer to that question, and then you work your way back to ask questions that help to identify the gap between what the customer is doing right now and what they could be doing that only you offer that solution, if that makes sense. I hope I didn't make it too complicated. It's a lot easier to put that diagrammatically, because you don't want to just ask questions willy-nilly. You want to ask questions that lead the customer to the points that differentiate you. And that's the secret. So thank you for that question.
Hi, Helga. May I ask a question? Hello?
Please. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation. And you suggest to pick up the phone. And I mostly agree with you. But I think that sometimes clients feel quite intrusive. And when we have a closer relationship, for instance, with some prospects in Portugal, and we speak the same language, and it's easier to connect and to create empathy on the phone, while speaking with some foreigner prospects from, for instance, Anglo-Saxonic culture that you probably know better than I know, I believe that the perception of the client varies per culture and is not so well accepted by certain cultures to just pick the phone and try to get some 5-10 minutes of client attention. What are your thoughts about that, or your experience?
Thank you for your question. I really appreciated that you asked that. I absolutely agree with you that prospecting varies with culture. And the secret to a successful prospecting campaign is to incorporate various channels. Absolutely, the phone has got to be there 100%. That is the one variable that doesn't change. But then include email, LinkedIn or social media, virtual events, conferences, international missions like the BPCC has, for example, all of that. Now, what happens is that you monitor that. And if you see that you have a better conversion on the emails, you do more of that. If you see that you have no response with LinkedIn, you do that. You take that out. So you're always monitoring, you're always finding an equilibrium between all of these channels, right? But you do need to be finding these channels. Now, I wanted to point something out that Teresa said here that's extremely important. Teresa, you used the word intrusive, right? Now, this is really important because prospecting over the phone and cold calling, right? The main characteristic of it's proactive, okay? It's not reactive. Marketing is reactive. Inbound is reactive, okay? Outbound is proactive. The very nature of a phone call is that you are interrupting somebody's day. So the first thing that us salespeople need to do is embrace that and get over it, right? Embrace the fact that you are interrupting somebody's day. That's the very nature of making that phone call. Now, having said that, what separates those that do it very well from those that struggle is intentional, right? If you have a clear intention and a goal when you are making that phone call, and the only thing that you do is deliver value through your message, then the conversation, the flow of the conversation changes completely, right? If I'm calling you, Teresa, and I'm saying, Teresa, I'm calling you because I understand. Teresa, what do you do? I beg your pardon? What do you sell?
My micro. We sell in Innovation Cat software for innovation.
Okay. Teresa, I'm calling you because I speak with sales leaders who are selling software for innovation, and I noticed that there are 3 trends that are happening in the industry right now that are deeply impacting productivity for most sales leaders. I would love to grab 10 minutes with you and just share some of these trends that are going on right now, and maybe just leave you with some ideas that can help you, that you may have not considered before, and that can help you to drive more business going forward. Have you got 10 minutes next week, Tuesday at 10 o'clock? Will that suit you? Does that sound different to you?
Yes, I understand what you mean. Intentional, I think it's key indeed.
It's absolutely key.
Value that you need to deliver when you approach someone.
The reason why most people hate cold calling is because the person on the other side is wasting their time. They're interrupting, fair enough. It's what we do. It's what we do in sales. If you are in sales, you are in the business of interrupting somebody's day. But I'm interrupting because I know that I'm helping to make that person's life better. And I know exactly how I'm making that person's life better. And I'm not talking, you know, I'm not calling to talk about the product. That's the worst mistake anybody can do, right? Oh, can I send you a brochure? Or can I talk about my product? Or we have a new feature in our software. Nobody cares about the feature in the software. Nobody cares. People care about problems, about risks. They care about 4 things. They care about reducing your risk, eliminating your problem, achieving your results, or what's the other one? Achieving a result, eliminating a problem, reducing a risk, or, you know, reducing a problem, eliminating a problem. That's what they care about. If you're talking about, if anybody's talking about anything else other than that, you are wasting their time, and nobody wants to have that time wasted. So, and this thing about empathy as well, you know, there is a thing called empathy, but there's another thing called, you know, emotional intelligence. You know, it's important to have empathy insofar as you're saying, look, I understand what you're going through because I talk with other leaders in the community in your industry, and the same thing is happening to them. And the way that people that are doing very well in this industry, the way that they're overcoming these challenges is ping, 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 ping. Now, to be effective at this method, you have to have one thing, right? And apart from commitment, right, you need to have one thing. One crucial thing is you have to have curiosity. You have to stay ahead of the game. You have to know exactly what makes people tick in your industry. What is going on in your industry? You do need to know those 3 trends that are affecting businesses and how to overcome them. And then you can talk about how it is that your solution resolves those questions in a way that nobody else does. That is the trick. There's a question here, according to your experience, because I just do this in presence mode, how do you suggest we can train active listening and question in role plays? Anna, are you still there? Can you help me to understand this question?
Yes, thank you, Helga. I enjoyed very much your ideas and the way you address this. I've been facing this challenge, and I work in sales and training and coaching people for over 25 years. And this is exactly what you have addressed. So here it's in Portugal, in pharma industry, in banking, in insurance, in all business, people, salespeople do face this challenge. They just need to listen, to practice active listening, because they waste lots of opportunities because they do not listen to their clients. And also about digging and questioning. So nowadays, because most of us, we cannot do this training in presence. So you have to put it online or virtually, whatever. What do you suggest, according to your experience in university at Nova? How could we do this effectively?
You mean, how could we do training effectively?
Yes, training, active listenings, and the powerful questions. How can we do this online so that because we cannot just send, this is practicing.
And can I ask you, Anna, who is your audience? Is your audience students or your audience?
No, mainly companies. I train sales managers so that they can do this with their teams.
Okay, so am I understanding the question correctly? Are you asking how do I create engagement online?
Engagement, and how could we train these people so that they could do the same with their teams virtually?
Okay, so let me think about this, because I want to make sure that I'm addressing your question. So you're wondering how can you train people to do active listening?
Yes.
And questioning.
Okay, yes. So how can we train managers, sales managers, in active listening and powerful questions so that they could do the same with their teams?
Okay, virtually, of course.
Virtually,
okay.
Yes, because
So,
we cannot do training now.
Okay, so I understand. There was one piece of advice when we are moving a lot of our content at Nova to online. In fact, quite a lot of the courses, Nova has actually set up a new online portfolio of courses. And there was a piece of advice that I received from an expert, which was excellent, absolutely excellent, right? And I'm hoping that it's going to answer your question, Anna. Please forgive me if I'm kind of far off. Especially with adult education, which is what we're talking about, right? Something that's imperative is that you desdobra, you bundle, right? So if you have, let's say, a thought, all right, you have a thought that you want to put across, right? What you do is you debundle that thought into parts. Okay. Right? And you use visual aids for it, right? And then you coach people into each part. Okay. Now, one of the things that I do, I have a new course which is a role-playing course, right? And for example, handling objections, right? This is a particularly difficult one because I'm showing the methodology and people can still get it wrong, right? So what I'm doing is I'm debundling the formula literally into parts and then doing a role play of each part, right? And then coaching each person to see how the person is deviated from, you know, the best practice, so to speak. So I don't know if that answers your question, but definitely debundling and then having adding things like quizzes to validate understanding. Okay, adding polls as well to ensure that that the audience is following you. But yeah, doing you might want to do a breakout room, for example, where on the breakout room, what happens is that in smaller groups, people can actually test it. So you can have maybe a trio where one person is saying something, the other person is intervening, and the third person is then is doing active listening. And then you bring everybody together back from the breakout room, and the people that have the active listening will then share their findings. You know,
Thank you so much.
Does that help?
Yes, a lot. Yes, good ideas. Thank you.
Okay, good.
And something else you might want to take a look at is gamification. This is something I've known about over the years, but it seems to have got more and more sophisticated now. And there are some companies specializing in gamification, which can be used, one as a sales tool, but also as a training tool. So come and call me later if you'd like me to introduce you to someone on gamification.
You see, this is what I mean about Chris. You always have great ideas. I always love it. Chris, I see a question. I don't know if Douglas is still on the line, but Douglas was asking about how to motivate the team during this time. and how to do more with less hours due to layoff. And this is actually really hi, yeah, hi Douglas. And this is a very pertinent question. I love this question because to motivate sales teams, you know, I've been hearing different things. You do need to look at their, at their rewards package, right? You might, I've heard of people actually put a floor, set up a floor under which the commission never drops. Okay, so the commission will never drop below that floor of commission. So that's just an idea. Some people are looking at and setting up that floor could be, for example, calculating the last 3 rolling months of performance. So depending on the last 3 rolling months of performance of each individual, that could be the floor or the ceiling. That's an idea. And then in terms of productivity, Douglas, I have a good one for you, right? This is transformational, okay? This is transformational in terms of productivity. For example, for prospecting or for retention purposes, right? The best secret I can give you is this: block your time. What I mean by block your time is set up 60 minutes, 90 minutes. I mean, it's an hour, but do an hour a day consistently. And during that hour, you do nothing but prospecting. If it is prospecting that you're doing, you don't do research, you don't answer phone calls, you don't have the boss coming in or an employee coming in and saying, I'm sorry, could you just help me with this, right? You don't answer emails, you don't answer your phone, you do nothing. It's incredible. It's actually scientific. You know, it's actually scientific that when we allow our brain to focus on only one thing, time folds, time multiplies. It really is crazy incredible, you know. So block your time every day. Leave an hour for prospecting. I will guarantee you that in 3 months your pipeline is unrecognizable. Yes, Pomodoro technique. Yes, that's right. That's right.
Well, Helga, I think it's time to start wrapping up unless there are any other last questions. We've reached 12 o'clock. Anybody with any last minute questions, or can we just say thank you to everybody?
That's it. Well, I do want to thank everyone. I mean, we stayed half an hour over. That to me is just fantastic.
It's a very good sign.
I really love to have had this opportunity to share with you guys and to learn from you guys as well. Thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate it. Connect with me on LinkedIn, guys, and let's stay in touch.
There are a few people that arrived late that have asked me on the private chat if you can send them copies of the recording, so we'll arrange that.
Good.
Thank you, everybody, and hopefully you saw my slide earlier on with forthcoming webinars, so please register for any that you feel you're interested in. Thank you all.
Cheerio, everyone. Thank you.